But the title of this presentation is "We're Losing Our Children." But what's in the program is help. I don't know how to turn this on. Be gentle.
There's no audio feed in this room. That audio is.
Okay. Okay. Well, the title of this presentation is in the agenda is identifying clans and lineages for children, Native children. And the reason that I'm here at this conference is I made a presentation at the 2009 conference where I presented the problems that our children, our Alaska Native children, our Tlingit and Haida children, are having within this state and other states becoming involved in the child welfare system. And what's happening is, and I've got some statistics here for you folks. Move forward. How do I move forward? Enter.
You hit the arrow key. And
Oh. Was that the second page? Oh, good. I'm the Indian Child Welfare Coordinator with Tlingit and Haida Tribes in Juneau. And the Indian Child Welfare Act was passed in 1978. And what it does is it gives tribes the ability to intervene in cases where children are removed from their homes and placed in foster care. And what we're struggling with in our program is we have parents becoming involved with the system, but the biggest, most important part of the Indian Child Welfare Act is that when children are removed from their homes, they should be placed with family or with someone in the tribe. And we're having problems recruiting family members, tribal members, to become foster parents for our children. And what we're finding also is that a lot of our children who are in foster care and their parents don't have names. They know they're Eagle or Raven, but they don't know what clan they are. And a lot has contributed to the large number of young children that we have in foster care. And it started way back when we were first discovered by the Russians. Okay? And we call this historical trauma that's affected generations before us and is carried down to today, because with each invasion, and I'm calling it an invasion, they tried to take away our culture. They tried to make us into their image, and we've been losing language, we've lost a lot of our culture, we've lost a lot of our cultural ways, and we're migrating to the larger cities, but a whole bunch of things contributed to that. There's the Russians came over, they took some of our people back to Russia, and there's when Alaska was broken up into 5 separate regions with 5 different major churches coming in to save the Indians. There's the boarding schools, there are the wars, there's the relocation program that Eisenhower put into effect in the 50s, so that our people started moving away from their communities and became isolated in other areas. And a lot of this is contributing to the high numbers of children that we have in foster care, Tlingits and Haidas in foster care across the United States. So what I'm asking you guys to do is to help us write the questions that we should be asking parents and grandparents. And I'm going to share it with Alaska Office of Children's Services, going to send it to the other tribal child welfare programs, and we're going to send it to the other states that have our kids in custody, because they don't know which questions to ask our people when they're taking a child into custody. So we're going to be, this is a participatory workshop. So Enter. The Indian Child Welfare Act that was passed in 1978 says, there is no resource that is more vital to the continued existence and integrity of Indian tribes than their children. And it's great to see these young people at the center over there coming to ask questions. But there are a whole bunch of other kids in other areas. We have a large population in Anchorage, huge population in Washington, Oregon, California. But believe it or not, we get petitions and notices from Tennessee, Florida, Arkansas. That's where our people are settling. And folks down there don't know what questions to ask. In Alaska, and these are 2010 census figures, the Alaska Native American Indian populations in Alaska are 14.8%. We make up 14.8% of the population in Alaska. In Anchorage, that American Indians and Alaska Natives are 7.9% of the population. In Southeast Alaska is 14.9%, and in Juneau, which is where I'm from, it's 11.8%. I forgot to introduce myself. I'm sorry. My name is Leonora Florendo. I'm the Indian Child Welfare Coordinator with Tlingit and Haida Tribes. I am Tlingit and Filipino. My Tlingit name is Tlikwe. I was named for my grandma or your grandma? My great-grandma. And my mother is Nora Dowenhauer. My grandmother was Emma Marks, and she did the beadwork that's on my vest. My mother bought the pretty pink, non-traditional suede for my vest, and I made my vest. But I was born and raised in Juneau, and I've lived there most of my life. Spent 9 years in Boston, East Coast, went to school, came back, and tried to get a job in Juneau, Alaska for a year before I finally got one with Tlingit and Haida. And I had to interview 3 times to get an executive secretary job there. I have a degree. And the state of Alaska kept saying that you're overqualified if you want to be an administrative assistant. And my argument was I meet the minimum qualifications. Nobody has called me to interview for jobs. But these percentages are going to be important when I show you how many of the kids are in foster care. Our kids are in foster care. In Alaska, the number of children in foster care was 1,151 in 2012. The total number of children in foster care was 1,825. Our children make up 63.7% of the children in foster care. We are overrepresented in the foster care population in Alaska. And the numbers there show, these other numbers show that it really hasn't gone down. The numbers, we are, American Indians and Alaska Natives make up a majority of the children in foster care in Alaska. In Anchorage, Alaska Native American Indian children represented 56.2% of the number of the children in foster care. Right now we're working with the state of Alaska on the high numbers of children that we've had in the foster care system, and we've been working with the state since 1994. And they still haven't gone down. But this is a summary of the statistics for 2012. In Southeast Alaska, 78% of the kids in foster care are Alaska Native or American Indian. You know and I know that they're mostly Tlingit. Am I going backwards? Southeast, 119 children that we know of are in foster care. There's a lot of children who are placed with relatives and they don't necessarily go into custody. And we need to know where those kids are, because the families who are taking care of those kids might need some assistance from Tlingit and Haida if they're not receiving it already. I'm pressing the wrong button. I'm sorry. So what does this mean? Did I have yes. How do I go back? Okay. This one shows the placements of children in foster care. The 456 children, this is January 2012. And these are Alaska Department of Health and Social Services statistics. 457 of this 1,400 children, 457 are placed with Alaska Natives. Gus, how are you? He's the one that took 3 interviews to get hired. 457, that's 68.1% of the kids in foster care are with non-natives. And what usually happens is that they get adopted by the people that they've been with for at least a year, okay? Because there's bonding and attachment happening. Does anybody have any questions? No? I'll whip run through it then, because we're going to be getting to work after I get through this thing. I keep pushing the wrong button. This is not my computer. I don't know how to use it. And I said that already. They're being adopted out. So what's happening is our children are in crisis. They're being taken from their families and their parents, and they're being cared for by natives and non-natives. So when you put it in this context, the clan conference, what does that say about the kids that we're losing? How are we going to reconnect them? And for me, the best way to do it is to find them placements now before they get adopted out. And what we're having a problem with is what questions should we be asking parents and grandparents when we're looking for relatives or clan members? Is it appropriate to ask a clan member to provide foster care or to permanently take the child into their home? What else is happening is families and clans are not exerting the control over members like they used to. I know there used to be some real strict rules way back when, about who you could go out with. I remember my mother saying, he's your cousin. Don't do that. But I am now a senior citizen. That was a long time ago. And we have families that are not stepping forward to take a child who needs a placement. Either they don't know, or it's just not the right time. But what we're looking for, if it's not the right time for you, is there someone in the family that can take a child or children? But because all of this is happening, we're allowing the children to be adopted out. And what will be the struggle for those kids if this clan conference isn't going on? Are they going to have to go to Sea Alaska Heritage Foundation, for example, to read about the way things used to be and to hope that they're doing it the way at least we think we're practicing it correctly? Or are they just lost forever? The thing is that finding out who you are is basic, a basic need. Finding out who you are and where you come from. And a lot of our children, we don't know all 27,000 members of the tribe. We don't know who they're related to. And Valerie can attest to the fact that I'm always going upstairs trying to build family trees for kids, trying to find out where they're from, so that we can at least call relatives or extended family. Children are not The kids that I know in Juneau don't have Tlingit names. And unfortunately, at this point, I'm wondering if children are the property of their parents, and that family doesn't want to interfere because these children belong to that mother and that father. Grandparents, aunties, and uncles aren't stepping forward when a child is at risk. Used to be, they used to come to the parents and say, "We'll take the kids for a while until you're okay, but let us take care of them for you," and they'd allow that. The parents would allow it, and the clan house was the safest place to be for children. That was in the olden days. Is it still true? Don't know. And again, Gus.
Yeah, could you push the pause button for a minute?
Sure.
What puts the children in this situation in the first place?
Good question. Because in Alaska, and most on our caseload, last year, in 2010, we touched the cases for 660 children across the nation. This year it was 556. The cause for removal was alcohol and substance abuse, which leads to neglect. So it's neglect related, but it's alcohol and substance abuse.
It's not a question, but I think it's more of a comment. Going through all the different statistics and that Lee is bringing forth, it only brings to my mind that, first of all, I feel like it's a lot of this is identity crisis.
It's all of
from the parents, is because when we know who we are, we fight for what is ours. I guess I could somewhat relate to what I'm saying is that when I live in the city, I could become no more. I'm not a Tlingit. I'm not responsible for who I am, and that could entail many things. But I'm just using that as an example. And so somehow we need to try to, and we've all been working towards that through the Heritage Foundation, Sea Alaska Heritage Institute, and trying to help us become a significant contributor to society by knowing who we are. Because if we don't know how we fit in, what do we fight for? What do we stand for? And so I just think that is our children our property? And the term that it came to me is that, and that hopefully I'm right, this is Hashugun Naha. That's ours. They are ours. It's like how our ancestors are Hashugun. Those that are going to be out before us when we're gone is our Hashugun. And we've become their Hashugun. So it's just somehow we need to help these families, and I think that's a message maybe we need to start trying to incorporate into when we talk to our people, and helping us to know the crisis that we are in.
This is a lot of kids.
That just overwhelms.
And this is just this year. We've been losing them over time.
When I was married to my wife at the time, we were both foster parents, and I can say that one has to be gifted. But if I was to do it now with hindsight, is that my first approach would be, don't expect so much out of the child, because there's a lot of trauma and they carry a lot of baggage that's not their fault. But I would treat them in a different form, where I wouldn't, not having that knowledge of children, but now having raised my own children, that there's certain, they're wounded, they're bruised. So little comments hurt. You ever get a bruise or hurt, and and somebody touches that bruise, it hurts. That's the way children are.
Mhm.
And I just wanted to make that comment because those things, when she's sharing those things, that those things come to mind, and if somehow we could understand and have that connection as we once have as clan members.
Mhm.
You know, when there's a whole lot of things that our clan people used to do for each other. You know, and I think we need to step up to that plate.
I'm sure our children would love it because we've got some lost little souls. Just thinking in terms of Juneau, we got some lost little souls who probably only go to memorials, whatever those happen, and it's clan related, but the meaning, what is the significance of standing up with your family, your clan? Those kinds of things are being lost, not passed on. And this, like I said, this is great, but how do we give it to the next generation that's out there and will come looking for us later? And we've found that that's true. We've had kids who turn 18 and go back home after they've been adopted out. They'll find their way back home. And that's not the most ideal situation. It'd be better if they were with family before they got, instead of being adopted out. But like I said, we don't know everybody. And we need to know what questions to ask so that we can get the names of family members, clan members, that we can call when a child or children need a placement. And obviously we're not asking the right questions because we don't get a broad, a bunch of names. We just get one or two. And then we have to call this person and that person to get more names. So what we're here for today is to write the questions. This is what we ask. That's what I ask. Who's your mother? Who's your grandmother? Where is she from? Where's your grandmother from? Because when you look at Andy Hope's clans and villages, we sometimes go to that thing and can let a person know this is how you spell the name of the clan from that community. Oh my God, it makes the hair on my arm stand up when they hear that. But we don't. Another question that I've started to ask is, when you guys went home for the summer, where was that? What did you guys do? Did you dry fish? Did you go picking berries? Because that usually identifies their home community, the community of origin for that family. So what we're here for is to craft questions. And I hope that you guys will be able to help me write them. And I will give you all the credit. Because who should we talk to? The clan leader? The clan mother? Who? Give us hints here on what we need to do in order to get a list of names for children, as opposed to one or two that can probably be not become a permanent placement. Unfortunately, because of federal law, if someone had a prior CPS history, the prior Child Protective Services history, their children went into custody, they can't be licensed foster care. If a person doesn't pass the police history check, and it's an extensive one, it's a fingerprinting type thing, depending on a crime, they can't pass the history check. There's a lot of, we've submitted a lot of names, and there's always something in the background, and it's getting real frustrating because CPS, OCS here in Juneau doesn't necessarily tell us what the reason for denial was, and so that we could work with them on it, because sometimes we can get a waiver here in Alaska. But meanwhile, We don't have enough homes for our children. We're looking for extended family, but we're also looking for foster families, people who are not related to the children, who can open up their homes and their lives and share their home with children in need. So, where should we begin? Because, taking into consideration what we're doing this week, there is no resource that is more vital to the continued existence and integrity of Indian tribes and clans than their children. It's you guys. That's kids that come after you. Because if you don't have, if we're losing all these kids, and we have new leaders, when those kids become adults, will the leaders have followers? The clans are getting smaller, I think. They're not as big as they used to be. I mean, parties used to go on forever, right? Yeah. Yes.
I don't know. I'd like to get back to my question from
Oh my.
earlier.
I'm sorry.
At some point that, I mean, are there statistics that, because there's a lot of dysfunctionality going
Yes.
on here.
It was.
I mean, what is being done to prevent the dysfunction in the families?
We don't know if there's dysfunction until OCS lets us know.
Well,
We have programs at Plinkett. Well, we don't have the broad range of programs that some families need, but there are alcohol treatment programs, substance abuse treatment programs. But when a child goes into custody and a parent needs treatment, a parent can wait 8 to 10 months to get a bed. Meanwhile, what happens between this, you got to go to treatment and you get your bed, what happens in between? Sometimes we're able to have people come in and check in with us on a daily basis. That can get pretty old, but pretty soon, a bed that far off and treatment that far off is very tough for an individual to go through.
I was wondering, how long does the Office of Children's Services, once they place a child in a foster home and once the mother goes through the treatment program and this and that, how long does OCS wait till they think that the mother will not get the child?
Okay, according to federal law, if a child has been in custody 15 out of the past 22 months, they have to do a permanent plan. When a parent has to wait a long time to get into treatment, the clock is still ticking. That's why we ask them to come in and check with us daily so that we can mark, or if they attend AA and get signatures to show that they're trying to maintain sobriety. Sometimes we can give that to OCS and they can say that the permanent plan is return home because the parent is doing what he or she needs to do to remain sober until they get treatment. But it's a real short time span. Valerie?
Did you touch on maybe the preserving Native families?
Oh, yeah.
It might be
Oh, yeah. We've got a Preserving Native Families program in Juneau where we can get a referral from the TANF program, Tribal TANF program, when they think that a family might be in crisis, and if we provide services that we can stabilize the situation so that OCS doesn't come in. So that's our pre-ICWA program. But we're doing other things to get referrals sooner rather than later. Sometimes we receive a referral from TANF and a petition from OCS at the same time. That's not working. So we're working collaboratively to get the families sooner.
I know under the regulations of Indian Child Welfare that OCS has to make real active efforts. And how do they identify active efforts, in helping the mother try to get the children back?
Usually we have to go to court and tell the court that's not active. She has parents are entitled to an attorney if they can't afford one under the Indian Child Welfare Act. Yeah. And sometimes we assist them with accessing services. Can we get to Paul? You had a question.
You were
Was that?
asking
Go ahead.
as far as, what questions do you ask the children?
The parents, yeah, the children and the parents. Yeah.
Ask everyone involved.
Well, I got paper here.
I think, I guess I'm kind of hesitant to mention, because sometimes I think my significant Donnie is always there in front. The way I think when I work in the school system and I teach children from, some of them are kindergarten, fourth grade, they're always so amazed at our stories. I'm just trying to lay the ground rules right now. Might have a little bit of connection. Say what I'm going to say is that once they begin to identify with you, then they open up. And what I'm leading to is when whoever is in that office with those children, I think identifying with those kids is like, my name is Lee Quay. That's from Alsac River, Yakutat. And then say then they start listening. Oh, she's listening. And it says, I don't have a, I'm an eagle. You bring that closeness to that child. And that's what they're looking for. Anyway, so as far as what other kind of questions is that they will open those questions for you. And if it doesn't, then you can go into the questions.
So what was the question?
More as of a comment to
Huh?
identify with the children
Okay.
first. I think sometimes with the other side of, also I was also a counselor for alcoholics years ago, and doing other type of civic activities. I think sometimes when we approach things in the Western culture and the Western way, it's very harsh. It comes through dissecting. It hurts when somebody starts crying at us. Who are you? What's your name? Where you come from? We've all been there, sitting next to somebody. What's your name? Where you come from? What do you like to do? For me, it's very uncomfortable. I don't know about you. Sometimes I don't. I got old enough where I said, Rick, I don't really appreciate the questions. Oh, they were just arbitrary questions. Well, then why are you asking them? But see, what I'm saying is, could it be their approach that we're using? I don't know. I'm just throwing things out there, maybe hopefully to stir questions through.
So,
Thank you.
yes.
I guess it's not really a question for a parent or a grandparent, or maybe it is. I'm assuming that the parent has to be an enrolled member. So I guess
The child
is that
has
where you start?
the child has to be eligible for membership
Right.
for the Indian Child Welfare Act to apply.
Shouldn't you be able to find lots of the families there? Isn't it their whole tree?
Right. The thing is that we need to get the names, but
But the fact that the child is Joe Smith, to enroll, you have to know the parents and grandparents.
yes,
And
Yes.
then there's the whole tree, right?
right.
You're trying to find who.
What we're trying to find out is who are your grandparents, so that we can enroll the children and we can make the Indian Child Welfare Act apply to this child. But it takes, it can take a long time. It can take hours just to research one family tree. But to create the family tree can take days, months. Yeah, believe it or not, we have inquiries from Washington State that are 4 pages long. They go back to the 1850s in Washington. They know who their people are in Washington State. And these folks have been relocated down there for at least a couple generations. They've been able to carry it on. But the puzzlement to me is here, we have kids who don't know what their clan is. And they can't tell us what clan they are. Or the parents can't tell us what clan they are. They're eagle or raven. And then you see them at a memorial, oh, that's what clan you are. But, you know, so what questions do we ask? Is who's your mother? Who's your grandmother? Is that for the parent? Is that a start?
It's a good start.
A lot of the mothers are not native.
You know what? Then we ask, where's your dad from? But we try to keep the kids in the native side of the family, but the definitions in the Indian Child Welfare Act don't differentiate between native and non-native. So if there's a placement on the non-native father's side, that's a placement for the child. And that child is part of that culture too. That's part of his or her culture. Our interest is to carry on our culture, but if we can't find the placement that's appropriate for that child loses that culture. And that's what's happening. And that's been happening for generations, for some families. But it's, like I said before, a whole bunch of stuff's been piled on us, and they've been trying to take away our nativeness, our Tlinkitness, for generations already.
Say, I mean, I came from Washington, and I can think of several personal instances where neither of the parents, the child could say that neither of their parents were native, but their grandparents are. You know, so if you say, who's your mom, who's your dad, and you're trying to look at that,
If neither parent is native, that child isn't necessarily native unless that child was adopted. Is native and was adopted. Know what I mean? You said neither parent is native?
well, I mean, maybe that kid doesn't know.
Ah.
I mean, if they lived in Washington for that child's whole life and the parents' whole life, and they weren't raised in any kind of culture, maybe they don't know that their parents, that their grandparents are native.
Ah, yeah. Well, you know, I know we've lost a lot of children because CPS workers see a blonde, blue-eyed child and assume that child is not native. I know we've lost a lot of kids.
So the CPS comes in, how do they even make that determination that this is possibly a native child?
They'll ask the parent, is this child native? Or they'll look, oh, you must be native. And it's appearance first.
Of the counselor that's
Of the OCS worker, yeah. But they don't go beyond the mother's name and father's name in Alaska. We have to create the family ancestry chart in Alaska. What other questions? Joe, he raised his hand.
Well, I think that the clans used to have a big thing, and they used to be close-knit and live together. I think it should be kind of the clan's role to know who their members are, so then they can collaborate with Tlingit and Haida, and so they can find the trees easier that way.
I should put up another sheet. Clans collaborate with Tlingit and Haida to identify members?
Yeah, like
Oh! Out of the mouths of babes. I'm going to put Tlingit and Haida here, but it isn't necessarily limited to Tlingit and Haida, okay? collaborate with Tlingit and Haida to identify members?
Yeah.
Whoa. Look at that. Here my arms are standing up, Mom. It's my
You
mother.
have to go beyond the grandmother.
Thank you.
You have to ask, who's your sister? Who's your brother? Who's your cousin? Who's your uncle? Who is your auntie? You just keep going around. Don't ask just one. You go around and ask
Brother,
other relatives are
aunties,
your brothers.
okay, etc. Cousin.
Got cousins now.
Yes. Okay. Anybody else have a question?
Maybe ask them what they saw in pictures around the house, like what images were on the clothing, the regalia that might have been in the photograph that was worn on a vest or something that was in the house.
Birthday house.
That's one way you can get the kids to volunteer. You can make your regalia if you know who you are.
Or even have in some of these child welfare agencies have some photographs of what a beaded raven and a beaded eagle and a beaded thing looks like and run those caskets. Like, did you ever see anything like this in the photographs or in the building or in, around the house that you lived in?
Clan.
You were on the right track too when you were talking about, when you asked, where do you remember hearing your parents go to visit? Like what, really when you're talking about that root town, where, because you could definitely go back to that map or go to the elders and find out. You could find out what town they're really close to. It might not be necessarily the exact root town, but you can start asking questions from there too. And I think Nora really hit a good point, because a lot of the kids that I work with, sometimes they don't know who their dad is or who their mom is or whatever.
That's
but then-
okay if they don't know who their dad is. As long as they know what clan they are.
Yeah.
That's good. That's great.
Keep going. Keep going. Go ahead.
Sometimes they'll say, oh, well, so-and-so is my cousin.
Ooh.
When they start, and I think, Nora hit on that, who's their cousins.
She's-
And sometimes they don't necessarily know how they're related, but, that definitely gives you a starting point. The kids have
Yeah.
an idea who they are.
Because what we do is we go upstairs at Tlingit and Haida and look at the old records and tie people together.
Ask these two young men to help with their volunteers.
Oh, no, they're also participants. Jeez. Harriet.
Well, I was gonna say, when I was growing up, I knew I was raising dogs, having and so on. But my grandmother hardly ever talked about the clans
Mm-hmm.
in Kohak and Wrangell. By then, dancing and a lot of things. So a lot of times, the traditions were not practiced.
Yeah.
And I knew she was born in off day, but I never knew for sure, the rest of the.
Yeah,
And I think that's the way it is with a lot of the,
it is.
even in my generation and the
Yeah, because there's a lot of, I've got a whole bunch of articles here on the kinds of stuff that impacted us as Alaskan Natives, but also American Indians across the country, where they tried to breed out the Indian. Looks like they didn't succeed here. This is great. So, did you have a question that we could write?
corporation members.
Huh?
See if corporation members have the people that have that close
corporation?
Members.
Oh,
See the corporation record. Oh, you got it.
okay. Let's go on a roll, folks. Got any other questions that we might ask Priscilla?
They're covering a lot of the things that I didn't think about way back.
Yeah,
But knowing your family roots gets you
it's
today what
basic
you
to
are.
who you are. You gotta know.
Same color.
Yeah, yeah.
Good to see you.
It's good to see you. I'm sorry, I thought these pens were darker, but I hope you can read these questions. Does anybody else have a suggestion that we might ask? Because we have programs in the schools, which is great. The Tlingit programs. And I worked with someone who speaks a little bit of Tlingit, but she was frustrated because her grandkids were speaking Tlingit at the kitchen table and she couldn't respond. But no, the thing is that it's being taught to the kids, but how do you incorporate it into what's happening in the home on a daily basis? And I can't pay to go to UAS, I'm sorry. But, yes, question?
Is there a time where these foster children or children who are they're trying to find homeschool where there's a number of them at one place or one area?
Sometimes. There is a group for older children. It's called Facing Foster Care in Alaska. It's for teenagers and those that age out of the system. They leave the system after they're 18 years old. And they're trying to help change the system from that perspective based on their experience with the system.
I'm just wondering if that would be a possibility to where either elders or storytellers could come and
Oh my
visit
goodness.
those children and talk to
Oh my goodness, that'd be great. Because, well, they have activities going on locally. Used to be at the community council building, they'd have a Saturday activity where they could do beadwork and stuff, and that was where folks gathered. And I know there's other places in Juneau, but I spend most of my time at work on weekends too. Anybody else have?
if there is a place where we could, the Native community would be alarmed or be announced to that, where those might be if they want to come and volunteer or just to visit.
Oh, hey, we always need volunteers. We have men's groups. We have fatherhood groups at Tlingit and Haida that are just starting up. We have parenting groups that we're starting up. We're trying to start a grandparent, foster parent group here in Juneau to give them support because these folks are getting on in age, but they still are caring for their kids. We've got grandparents who are caring for kids in foster, part of that foster care system. And it's tough. I get a 5-year-old grandchild. I don't babysit her. I just follow her around. It's not babysitting Sophia. I follow her command. Anybody else have a suggestion for questions that we might ask? Or, yes, Virginia.
I wanted to ask Mary this question actually, but I don't want to be disrespectful.
No,
So
go ahead.
Share it with the group. And I don't really know how much I can say, but I do a small group in Wrangell, and I've got 2 children that started coming to my classes in the last month, and they're in, I'm not sure, it's kind of hard for me to ask questions, but they are in there for the cultural part of their placement.
Oh,
And
good.
and they know they're Kagwantan. And I'm looking at them, and my grandparents are Kagwantan from Sitka. And so I say, oh, my grandparents, and they recognize that they're little, 7 and 10. And they know, and when they're sitting with me, they get a little comfortable. And like Paul said, they're bruised.
Yeah, they are.
They are.
Of course
And
they are.
they start to talk to me about their parents and
Oh.
their grandmother, and they want to know if I know who their grandmother is, and they give me her first name and where she might be. So I'm not sure what to say, and I'm not sure if I should ask their their placement anything. So I know they're Kagwantan, and they're making, and they know they're bear, and they're making little bear headbands, and you know that. But just wondering, you know, when they're in placement, and you know, you must see that too in class and stuff. What is appropriate to ask the children, or what to do? You just
You can also ask the foster or adoptive
and
parents.
that's what
Yeah.
I'm asking you is,
Yeah.
am I able to ask the adoptive parents or the parents?
Yeah. They've mentioned their grandma's name is such and such.
Yes.
They know who do they know their mom and dad's names?
They know the first name of their mother,
Mm-hmm.
and they know their last name, yes.
You know,
Yeah.
it's a basic desire for us to find out who we are and where we come from.
So I can ask the adoptive parents.
Yeah, you're not trying to violate confidentiality. You're just trying to help these kids.
Sticky, you know?
Yeah.
And they come in, you got a lot of regulations when you have a program and you're not, you know, don't
Does
want
it-
to ask the kids in front of everybody.
No, you're not going to ask the kids in front of them.
I just wanted to comment on that. I'm not whispering back here.
You'll find a way to get the information because you're helping the children. Yeah. Anyone else have a question we might ask?
Yeah, maybe to get a little more statistics. What is the average age of the child?
They're newborns to 18.
Couldn't a concerted effort be made to get them into preschool? Where the understanding of the, in other words, maybe make a big time effort to get them in preschool where this type of thing that you want to identify becomes part of the curriculum.
We have a Head Start program.
I mean, can
but
it be expanded? I mean, not just say, hey, we have a Head Start program,
yeah,
but say, take this as a major issue
yeah,
and make a major effort to try to get it going, to
Yeah.
expand it, to include all of these.
they do have. Several years ago, Tlingit and Haida Head Start program won a national award for the program that they did. What was that? It was like positive Indian parenting from the National Indian Child Welfare Association. And the Head Start program in Juneau developed a series of desks.
Funding that comes to this program
Yeah.
that you're under
Oh.
may be possibly made to include this early childhood education where this identity becomes part of the curriculum.
Well, I don't know if you're aware, but Head Start is no longer part of Human Services. They're their own department. And we don't have that much funding in Tribal Family and Youth Services. We receive funds from 23 different sources, and that covers 23 different positions. It's very minimal amount. We're trying to work cooperatively with other departments to do wraparound services where we all come together and provide, do a cross-departmental plan to assist families. And that's as far as we can go. But we do a lot of classes during the year for parenting, for fatherhood, for, we have one that's called scrapbooking where people explore their ancestry and create visual picture books for their kids and their grandkids to show who their ancestors are.
I'm just wondering if you have programs for non-native foster families who might have native children at home.
They're always welcome. They're always welcome to come to Tlingit and Haida. We do have a counselor that provides counseling for children and for adults. They have children. They have our children. They're welcome, and we encourage adoptive and foster parents when children have to go to memorials or should be going to memorials that they should go with them to realize that how families come together to memorialize a person and to just come together and mourn together, celebrate together later. But sometimes, believe it or not, we had a couple families in Juneau. We purchased tickets to go to Celebration, and we distributed them to foster families they wanted to know if we would accompany them to Celebration, kind of sort of protect them from the Indians. No, really, we don't do that kind of stuff. No, you got the kids, you take them.
What is one of the biggest reasons do you think that the extended families, when you find them, are not able to take?
I have no idea what the biggest reason is, but a lot of what's happening today started a long time ago, and we're still trying to recover from all of those onslaughts that came and pulled us apart.
You just say, no, I can't help you? What do they say to you?
I've raised my children. Yeah, I did my time.
Well, and sometimes my concern, is things that I've seen is it's transgenerational. So what has happened to that parent who is not being able to take care of their kids? It happened to them from their parent, and
You'd be
from them to their
yeah.
parent, and on down through the generations. And in some ways, it could end up being risky, I think.
Yeah, unfortunately, many of the parents of the kids on our caseload today were in foster care. We have one child whose mother, grandmother, and great-grandmother were either boarding school or BIA foster care. But, we've got fourth and fifth generation on our caseload, unfortunately. So it's very difficult. It can be difficult to find relative placement, an aunt or an uncle, cousin, whatever. We have to go wider because folks have to pass police history check, prior CPS history, to identify someone who can be licensed and will not isolate that child from the bio family. Did you raise your hand? Oh, I thought you did. Yes, Mom. Nora.
Is it legally okay to put an ad on TV asking Tlingit children, Haida children, any Native American child to come and tell a certain office that they need to know who they are? Or is it already happening?
Well, when a child comes into custody, one of the things that we do is we enroll them because the parent is no longer legally. We enroll them on behalf so that ICWA can apply. So there's a gap. There can be a gap in between the child and the grandparent, but we enroll children who are in state custody. Bless you. Copy.
Or can you do it with the grandparent if you want to find your grandchild? Tell us.
Sometimes we're able to do that, but we don't have records before 1979.
I see.
Unfortunately, there's a whole bunch of lost souls out there that we don't know about. So, anybody else have a question that we might ask? I didn't want to turn this into a big old discussion.
This seems like a really huge issue that has been around for a long time.
Yes.
And it seems like it might be here for even longer. But
Of course.
I was wondering if there's a way to show this kind of information to everyone. We showed us stats on all of this, but does it seem like no one really knows about this? And it seems like we should try to raise awareness.
Ooh, we try. That's why we're here again. But it's a silent problem. People don't know about it.
Sometimes when we hear our elders speaking, or maybe clan leaders. One of the things they may say that is Hadaki Kagayas or Hadachman Kayan Kagayas, they're saying for our children, for our grandchildren, they need us.
Yes, they do.
Could be added in that there are many of our children that are in foster care. And if we really are saying it's for our children, we need to step up to the plate and prove that.
That'd be great. That's why I'm here. To see if we can write questions to ask parents and children and grandparents so that we can identify families sooner rather than later. Hopefully our children won't be adopted out in such high numbers because we're losing them. And whether we like it or not, they're going to come back and find out, ask us, why did you let this happen? Yeah.
I think in that,
Maybe asking kids, like, who is an adult that you really trust or you feel close to? That it might not even be a relative, but maybe it's a family friend or something.
Okay.
You could just get a name of an adult that they really feel connected to.
They feel what to?
Connected to.
Connected to?
It might not be a relative, but maybe that family friend knows something about that person.
Do you guys use any of the social networks like Facebook or something from the parents? Well, I mean, I know that in my own family, a lot of the cousins are on each other's Facebook. And I don't know if that's a way to identify possibilities.
It's kind of public. ICWA is highly confidential. We can't say, do you know anybody who's related to this kid? If my name is attached to it, they'll know it's an ICWA case, and that's violating the child's confidentiality. But when we're doing phone calls to those folks that we think are family members who have a right to know that that child is in foster care, we're not violating that child's confidentiality.
I know that working with Nora and Florence for many years in the schools and their children, I mean, I have a concern that they know family relations, like beyond, our elders know family relations beyond anything that we know. Our communities are becoming really spread out now, and when I call an elder and say, oh, this kid, I know his relative is so-and-so, and they know, they can just tell me, oh, that's so-and-so's grandkid, they're KKD, or, and I mean, I feel like as resources, our elders, I mean, even sometimes, maybe even more than the grandparents, our elders and people who understand lineage connections are really people we should be going to as well as our resources. It's an amazing thing to call up one of them, ask them, oh, so-and-so is related to so-and-so, figure out who their mom is, and they'll almost always know the answer, and it doesn't matter if they're from state or Huna or Saquon. It's pretty amazing.
So what time is this end? 3:30? Oh, I'm not trying to shoo you out the door. I just want to do a closing before we leave. 3? Is it at 3? Oh no! I'll do a partial closing. So, he says it says 3:30. 3? I need to know how you all feel about this information that we presented. What did you think about this information that we presented?
I think it was very stirring for me because the last comment is says we need to become passionate about our children and reaching for them.
He says we need to feel passionate about our children. Yes.
Thinking about what we're talking about here, I lost my mother when I was a very little boy, and I was very blessed by being taken in by my grandmother, my mother, my adopted mother, my mother's sister. But at the same time, shortly thereafter, my father remarried, and he had 4 more children. 4, not 5. And I knew 3 of them. And I knew one was born outside of Alaska. And it always was in my heart to find out who my brothers and sisters are. Where are they? How are they doing? And I caught up with one in 1976.
Wow.
And in 2006, all of them came home.
Here, Alaska.
They came
Yeah.
to my house in Juneau.
Oh, yeah,
It
how
was
wonderful. That's great.
So, we've got to stay connected to our children.
Yeah,
Even if this child is not born to you in your bloodline, he's still our child.
yeah.
She's still our child. So we need to keep going forward after them. Never let go. Away.
So, thank you. But meanwhile, if any of you know of anyone who would be great foster family for a child, we're always recruiting. And we need foster families.
I have a question about that.
Yes.
Is it an absolute requirement that you have a spare bedroom?
A child has to have a place to sleep and a place to store their belongings. It doesn't have to be a bedroom. It doesn't even have to be a bed. But a place to sleep is not necessarily a bed, and a place to store their belongings can be Xerox boxes with covers. They don't have to have their own room. But to pass the safety inspection for the home. Does anybody else have a question? So, anybody have any comments about today that might be helpful to me in the future this week? I got a couple more to do. Sir.
I noticed when I help process ICWA adoptions that there's a physical characteristics or background information about the biological parent form that has to be filled out.
Yeah.
Is it conceivable that by lobbying Vital Statistics or whoever it is that created that form, that you could embellish it so that the clan relation,
Oh, that'd be
instead of
great.
just saying Alaska Native, you know,
That'd be
actually
great.
goes a step further.
That'd be great.
That information.
We-
And obviously tribal courts could definitely have that
Yeah.
as part of their inquiry
Yeah.
when they're doing an adoption.
Well, maybe we can make it part of the case record at OCS,
That's right.
so that we have that.
Unfortunately, that's becoming a bit of the archive, God help us,
Yeah,
for a lot of these children.
yeah. OCS. Orca. Yeah.
Well, I just wanted to say thank you for presenting and help us become aware of what's going on.
Oh, good.
And since you're Raven and I'm Eagle, I'm just wanting to balance it out.
Oh, thank you.
Say thank you.
My eagle cousins helping me today. Thank you. I thank you guys. I got most of the questions that I'd like to ask. Kagwantan. Yeah. Thank you.
What do you want us to do with the paper?
I'm gonna have to move, aren't I? Huh?
Family tree and
We
have
should.
a directory.
Yes.
It should be easier for,
We have one.
Yeah.
Look already.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It would be easy for them to be connected because then they can say, oh, well, it's just right here.
Oh, that's a great idea. Are you still recording it? Yes. Oh, oh, thank you. Huh, that's good. I've been